welcome to part 2 of the Tune In 2022 videos, my treatise on the 3 crosses of the heavens, cardinal, fixed, and mutable. I'm back with you from the Broadway Lights Diner in Kingston, New York. Special Agent Dale Cooper and his boss Gordon Cole are enjoying breakfast over at the next table. I'm planning to say hi once I'm done with this video. Okay, so maybe you caught my first video, the introduction to the cardinal cross. Got that right. And just to recap a little bit, normally we think of the zodiac in terms of elements: earth, air, fire, water. But there's another way to think of it, which is the signs in relation to the seasons, and that is called the quadruplicity system, where we think of the signs as being grouped as cardinal, fixed, and mutable. And every season begins with a cardinal sign. For example, Aries. It peaks with a fixed sign, and it disseminates with a mutable sign, and then we come back to a fixed sign. Sorry, cardinal sign, fixed sign, mutable sign. So the seasons always go cardinal, which starts things like Aries, fixed, which stabilizes things like Taurus, and then mutable, things dissolve into the next season. For example, Gemini, Pisces, and all the mutable signs have that quality of energy of one thing becoming another thing. Fixed signs are things more becoming themselves, and the cardinal signs are something new happens, new life springs out of the ground, and so they all work together. And as I've said a few times, some of the best descriptions of these signs I have found in a book called The Book of Thoth by Aleister Crowley, and also Celestially Auspicious Occasions is a really wonderful book. It's probably out of print, but it's quite awesome. I've benefited greatly from it over the years writing about this stuff. Now, today we're going to talk about the fixed cross of the heavens, which is Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, Aquarius, and how that works together, and then what is going on the fixed cross in 2022. The fixed cross is famous outside of astrology. It makes at least 2 cameos that I know of. One of those cameos is in the Book of Revelation, where the 4 beasts of the apocalypse basically show up, and the 4 beasts of the apocalypse are a human, a bull, a lion, and an eagle. Scorpio being a somewhat complex sign, it has a number of different symbols. They all do, but Scorpio is kind of weird because it has an eagle as a symbol, and a scorpion as a symbol, and sometimes even a fish as a symbol. Though that's fairly rare. And then the other place that the fixed cross appears. Fixed cross, yes, sorry, it's early and my brain is not fully warmed up. The fixed cross appears is in the tarot, in the card, the world, or the universe, where you see these 4 guardians guarding what seem to be the 4 directions, except the way that the zodiac is constructed, the 4 directions are really, the cardinal points are really Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, because they're the cardinal signs and they represent the 4 directions. But at the midpoint of the next group, the fixed signs, 45 degrees later, there's another set of orientations at the middle of all of these signs, and those are called the cross quarters. The equinoxes and the solstices are called the quarter days, and the events that occur with the sun in the middle of the fixed signs are called the cross quarter days. And the cross quarter days are interesting because there are so many holidays clustered around the cross quarter days, and they're these natural energy vortices, but they almost go unnoticed by contemporary culture, except that we're just always doing a lot of things around these cross quarter days. For example, when the sun reaches the middle of Taurus. Right here, we have May Day. In the U.S., we have Memorial Day. We have Beltane. That's the original. And then all these different forms of Springfest are going on various places. And it is a celebration of the beginning of spring. And everybody understands that the winter's over. Then at midsummer, there's called the midsummer holiday. The midsummer holiday, and May Day, Memorial Day, Beltane, Springfest. Those are called the mid-spring holiday. There's different seasons. Some systems reckon that the summer begins with the sun in mid-Taurus, while we still have 45 days of increasing light here in the northern hemisphere, and that's fairly rare. Most other systems count the beginning of summer as the longest day. That never really made sense to me because the sun is waning at that point. The days are getting shorter, starting on the first day of summer. It certainly seems to make much more sense to count the beginning of summer at the middle of the sign Taurus, but that in traditional, whatever, old-timey, Gaelic-y, paganish times was called the mid-spring holiday, and then the middle of Leo is the midsummer holiday. That includes a thing called Lunessa, Loafmas. Catholics called it Loafmas, Lunessa. It's the peak of the summer festivals. It's the first harvest or the second planting, where stuff is starting to come back in from the fields. And so then there's a cluster of holidays there. Then the next one is when the sun is in mid-Scorpio. Mid-Scorpio, here it is, mid-Scorpio, there you go. And so there's another cross quarter there, and that's Days of the Dead, All Souls Day, All Saints Day. I say Days of the Dead, some people correct me and say Day of the Dead, but there's so many. All Souls Day, All Saints Day, Halloween, which is also called All Hallows Eve. All that is hallowed. It is the celebration of all that all whom are hallowed, and all that is hallowed, and various forms of ancestor worship. It's called Samhain in the traditional calendar, and then that's when we dress up like skeletons and put ghosts in the front yard. Here in our culture and in many other cultures, and wear costumes. There's masks, there's costumes, there's skeletons. Seemingly throughout the world, I don't know who spread this, but it's also possible that it's a kind of intuitive thing that just sprang up many places, as sometimes does happen when you study across cultures. You'll see things just show up, and Samhain, All Hallows Eve, all that is a great example of that. Finally, when the sun reaches the middle of Aquarius here, that's the middle of Aquarius, right there. That's known as Imbolc, which means in the belly or in the milk. So we're deep in darkness, and we're in the belly of the stars, as it were. We're in the belly of the cosmos, and then in American culture we call this Groundhog Day. And the interesting thing about Groundhog Day is it's the one cross-quarter day that's actually used as the cross-quarter days all the quarters and the cross-quarters are supposed to be used for divination, and there's a little piece of that left over in that we do weather divination. There's a little groundhog who comes out of his thing in Puxatawney, Pennsylvania. I can't believe this actually happens. I mean, do they send out a press release, and all the TV networks go and terrify this thing? And doesn't the groundhog come out every day? But the thing is, we think that this is weather divination, somehow long winter, short winter. Who knows, who cares? What's the difference? Can anyone tell the difference? Why does no one follow up? But all of these days are supposed to be used for the purposes of divination. In other words, you make a tarot spread that you might leave open for a month and a half and work it out, and then when the equinox or solstice comes, you make another spread, or you have a ceremony, or you cast the I Ching, or you cast the runes, or whatever you might do. So they're all supposed to be days when you do divination. This is about every 6 weeks, so it divides the year into 8 6-week mini seasons, the equinoxes and the solstices, then the cross quarter days. So that's a general introduction, and let's talk about what's going on in these signs. Now, there would seem to be less going on than on the very, very busy cardinal cross, which I have another cue card here. Where did that go? Well, it's somewhere in there. It's in this massive stack of papers. There seems to be much more going on the cardinal cross, but if you look, see the previous video, but if you look carefully at the fixed cross, you'll see that there's quite a bit going on. And I haven't even pried too deeply into this. In other words, pulling up all the minor planets, we could go on for an hour if I did that. But I have some of them more than people over at McDonald's. Okay, so first of all, in the first of the fixed signs is Uranus in Taurus. Now, this has been going on since early 2018. It phased in finally in 2019, so it was a year phase in 2018. It's a 7-year transit. And this is a picture of all of the economic instability that we're experiencing, and also the instability of values, the shifting of values, and all the trouble we're having about deciding what is really important to us as a culture, and the radically shifting economic conditions that we're living in, which usually does not mean a good thing. Because usually rapidly shifting economic conditions create consolidations which do not benefit small people. The large get larger, and the small tend to get smaller unless they're very good survivors. And this is symbolized by Uranus and Taurus. Also, there's the cryptocurrency thing with electronic thing going on in the sign of value. Now, also, we have a point called 1992 QB1. I've done many articles about that. Pretty much, if you type in my name in 1992 QB1, you'll see QB1 was discovered on the Aries point back in 1992, literally at the first degree of Aries. So it's a big discovery. It was the first discovery in the Kuiper Belt, and that has now been known long enough to have evolved into becoming a thing in Taurus. It was recently named Albion, which is quite a humanitarian concept. It was named Albion by the discoverer David Jewett, and that's out of the work of I'll think of his name. He's I believe a 18th century guy, Blake. Okay, so Blake. So what's that about? So. This is a sexual healing influence. It is the first sigil of what I think of as the thresholders, though I have often described Vesta as being the space-holding property of the thresholders, right? The quality of being able to hold the space open for another person's evolution, healing, relationship growth, and all of that is what Vesta is about. But QB1 to me represents the people who have the responsibility of taking people to the next place to the edge, to the threshold of their next place of sexual healing, and also healing of any kind of transformative growth, going from one major stage of life to another, whatever that might be. Finally, in Taurus, we have Sedna, the goddess of the icy waters. It's a creation goddess from Inuit mythology. I'm not sure you can see that, but I'll have my finger dance right above it. And that's Sedna right now is in the last degree of Taurus. It's a very, very slow moving point. It's the slowest moving point that I use. Its orbit is about 10,400 years. That's an incredibly slow orbit. I mean, even Eris has an orbit of about 551 years. That's very long compared to Pluto at 248 years and so forth. And so you see the 10,400 years is a heck of a long orbit. And this thing has been in Taurus a long time, and now it is getting ready to make its transition into Gemini, and that itself is going to probably take 3 years for Sedna to cross back and forth between the last degree of Taurus and the first degree of Gemini. So that is what is going on in Taurus. Now in Leo down here, see down there, we've got Leo. Doesn't seem to be much going on. Most astrologers would say, well, there really is no major activity in Leo, but I can see that there's minor planet activity. And in early Leo, there's a point called Varuna. Varuna was discovered in 2000. It is in the pre-Vedic world, incredibly important god. He was the god of the entire cosmos, and then was somehow changed into a god of part of the cosmos. So there's a demotion involved in Varuna. Varuna is one of the gods who is shown holding a noose, dangling a noose, being carried around on things, and that is one of the cycle of gods of the enforcers of contracts. It's a very important theme in our world, and a very important theme for Varuna, the enforcement of contracts. Okay, so then one other thing. Varuna is a leveler. Varuna holds space open for situations to equalize. It does not have the dramatic kind of action that it was perceived as having at the time that it was first discovered in 2000, and it was considered, but yeah, it does not have the dramatic kind of action that it was predicted to have, like, oh, this is going to put all the people of the Illuminati into the prison in The Hague that they built, but for other people to be in. But it does have a leveling and equalizing quality, and the enforcement of contracts implies a kind of equality through agreement, and is very harsh to those who don't honor their commitments. Okay, next. Again, we might think, well, there's not very much going on in Scorpio in 2022. There are no well-known slow movers. There's a number of water-associated points in Scorpio, but they're all minor planets, or slow-moving minor planets. I don't have them drawn in here. I don't have my computer on me, and my program doesn't work on a phone. But let's stick with the most important thing going on in Scorpio right now, which is a trans-Neptunian point called Apollon. It looks like Jupiter with a double vertical through it, and Apollon is a joiner of the tribes. Basically, it brings people together, and so we need to be getting together around all of the things that Scorpio represents. We've been through a time when we've had our cultural ritual severely disrupted. It's very disturbing to see all of these scorpionic type rituals, including marriages and funerals, being not only being disrupted by the government, but people so casually giving up their civic and social rituals, which is a very good way to surrender your entire society. We need our traditions, and we've seen people just almost entirely just throw them to the four winds. And the most important of those are weddings and funerals, I think. And in any event, Apollon is joining people together around all themes scorpionic. And those themes scorpionic include all matters of sexuality and sexual bonding, which is not a topic for polite conversation, but it is a necessary topic now that we have been pushed out to the very edge of our existence, and are really facing an existential threat. Scorpio is a good sign to describe the fact of the existential threat, and we would do very well to join in that struggle in a way that is not coerced and manipulated and threatened by terrorist approaches. Okay, finally, Aquarius. Aquarius it holds the top position in the fixed cross, and we know there's a lot going on in Aquarius. We've been hearing a lot about it. For example, on 12/21 2020, there was a conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn in the first degree of Aquarius. It's a big deal to have that kind of a rare conjunction in the first degree of a sign, and it is it happens only every 20 years, and so it really was quite impressive to have Jupiter conjunct Saturn in Aquarius on the solstice of last year. Some people thought this was going to be wonderful. I was as optimistic as I could be. My friend Dale O'Brien he thought this is not a good thing. He's not a big fan of the collective attributes of Aquarius, partly, and I've been cautioned about this by other astrologers, partly because they're so overblown as being about peace and love, when really what we get on the collective level with Aquarius, I'm not talking about individual people born under the sign Aquarius, but what we get together, we get in collective Aquarius is often a kind of a lockstep enforcement of social norms and social rules. So it's not cool. And what we're seeing going on with these enforcement of social so-called norms and completely unjust and ridiculous rules that don't help anyone. You think they do, doesn't mean that they do. And this is Jupiter, Saturn, and Aquarius. So we are going to have Saturn in Aquarius through all of 2022, but Jupiter is going to move along into Pisces at the very end of the year. I think on 12/28 or 12/29, depending on what time zone of this year. And so Jupiter leaves the fixed cross, it mounts the mutable cross. We'll get to that in the next video. Leaving Saturn behind. Saturn is then going to be there through March of 2023, leaves at the beginning of 2023, and then Pluto, which I put in this almost unreadable yellow. How do I get that? Unreadable yellow. See that? Very unreadable, so it really stands out. Is that in March of 2023, Pluto mounts the fixed cross for the first time in a heck of a long time, the 70s really, and we begin this whole new era. I and others who are not, let's say, vaccine and virus junkies are noting that this is largely going to be about transhumanism. It's going to be about the emergence of the technocracy and the essentially which is really emerging now, where the values and attitudes have sufficiently changed. We have people injecting themselves with nanoplasma particles that are readable by computers. You might have missed that if you were accusing people of conspiracy theories in 2020, but now it turns out, well, actually, the graphene is readable. Nobody knew what graphene was in 2020. Now we all know what graphene is. And so the human realm and the technological realm are morphing, and the goal is to put humans on the Internet of Things. And so Pluto can represent a mass power of some kind, and it's an unseen force operating, or force that no one's paying attention to operating, and Aquarius can represent humanity as it manifests as a mass or as a group, either way, and so what is possible is that we're going to continue to come under the thrall of technocracy and wind up in a Black Mirror-like world. Now, the other side of this is that humanity can evolve through this, but it becomes harder and harder to evolve through something if everyone is a prisoner of it, and then there's a huge category of people who have fallen prey to this and have allowed the technology, the operating system, into their bodies. What are we going to do? Is there going to be a whole like basically a industry of detoxing from these things, or question one? Question two: are people really going to fall for the booster every 2 months, like they're saying in England, two or 3 months? Like the health commissioner of England changed it from 2 months to three months. Really? Who? What? So watch what you believe with all this Aquarius happening. A boot on your throat doesn't mean something is true. It only means there's a boot on your throat. And is there really? I mean, I realize that it's possible to feel out of place and maybe a little stalked and hunted in some places. Doesn't make it true. It's very important to know the difference between what's true and what you're being forced and coerced into believing. On the Planet Waves FM, today's the 8th, I think, 9th, 10th, Friday. I'm going to read an email from someone talking about this in Tantra Studio, so check that out if you like. So the Aquarius thing right now is all the social pressure that we are under, and in some ways it makes the fixed cross one of the most active crosses because we are seeing the greatest effects on society coming through a fixed sign, and so the entire fixed cross is active. The other thing two more points here. We've got a couple of minutes left on this file. We have now lived through Saturn square Uranus. That is behind us. That alone would have been huge. But setting that aside, let's pay homage to one last point in Aquarius, which is Cariclo. Cariclo is another one of the space holding points. Cariclo is Chiron's wife, and so was, among other things, held space for him during his very, very long illness, and served in some form of an assisting and healing capacity. We're now seeing mass psychogenic illness take over all of society, and so with Cariclo and Aquarius, we have the need for and the presence of holding space for how sick the entire social environment is. And fortunately, Cariclo is well suited to do this. The only downside of Cariclo that I'm aware of is to be conscious of glamour. I think that we need to be watching the whole glam thing all the time. It's one of the banana peels you can slip on and go over to the dark side. But besides that, and it's a relatively minor point in Cariclo, we really need to hold presence for how insane so many people are acting. I mean, there's no, when you really look, or even give a cursory look and then a very deep look at what people are claiming and saying and believing, it's sick. And so if you can feel that and see that, what do you do? Well, in a sense, you have to abide with it. You have to offer kind of abiding love to the world you see, and the problems in the world you see, and the sickness in the world you see. And we're going to be hanging out with this for a long time, and I think we need to be open and ready for people to choose to heal from mental illness and for now what seems like a medically induced physical illness, because this is going to get serious as time goes on, and we see the results of this unfold. Okay, so that's my discussion of the fixed cross. I'll be back in a few days with a discussion of the mutable cross. Don't forget to check my version of the cardinal cross and my video with Melanie Reinhardt, the discussion about 2022 astrology. Please like my channel, share this video, please subscribe to Planet Waves if you haven't. If you're one of these people who thinks, oh, I love this presenter, I love this guy, I don't see astrology like this anywhere else, make a little donation, please. You can do that at Chiron Return, you can do it, or you can sign up for the 2022 readings, which are called Tune In 2022. That link is right below above the comment area. Thanks for listening. I have about 25 seconds left. Kate in Ukraine, film student, good friend who does these videos for me. All right, logging off from Broadway Lights Diner. Lots of love.